the public employee pension plans for a number of states, and the 15 worst, New Hampshire was right up there. Change is going to come, as I've been telling the public employees. It can either be bankruptcy court or it can be legislative directive change. We're going to do that. And finally, we're going to fix the budget. The budget under the latest analysis by the Legislative Budget Office is going to be $845 million in the hole. Based upon projected increases in revenues and taking away all the gimmicks that have happened in the past, selling state roads to the Turnpike Authority, stealing money from the doctors, stealing $25 million from the JOA, bonding the operating expenses. Taking away all those gimmicks, we're going to be $845 million in the hole. Quickly, folks, this isn't a problem. This is an opportunity to rethink government in New Hampshire. What government does, what core functions of government are, what we can no longer do. We welcome that inquiry, and we're going to use it to give New Hampshire a better government. Thank you.
When you ask a question, there's a point here, then you can rise up and state your name, and so they'll know who they're talking to.
David Allen, right here in Rochester. I had thought about what you're saying about the school systems. Sounds like a great idea to decrease the budget, and I'm on board with that. And again, an idle thought. There's a friend of mine that works down the Rochester River, and it seems like it's just a group of towns that are working together to provide school system for the kids in that area. If that's also something that can be done in other places, and again, as an idle thought. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question about, I'm not aware of that. Is that a consolidated, an SAU that takes in a number of towns?
It is a group of towns. I don't know exactly which towns other than Durham.
Durham, Madbury, Lee.
So look
why
at
they have the highest taxes.
Yeah. Look at the best government is local government. The best government is government close to the people. To the extent the towns see a way to consolidate their operations and achieve efficiency and good education to the children, that's fine. It's not for the state to dictate that. The two most centralized school systems in the country are Hawaii and California. Hawaii has one school district for the whole state. California is highly centralized and get the worst results. Their parents can care about the children, and when they can have direct input into their children's educational opportunities, they'll get the best opportunities. New Hampshire traditionally had education results that were rated at the top of the nation, the top 5. And it was not because we spent a lot of money. It's because we allowed communities to provide education for their children. When I was on the Mount Vernon School Board, we decreased the budget one year, and our test scores went up, in part because we got rid of some of the foolish programs that are distracting from poor education.
Michelle Paradiso, Rochester. And it's on the same subject. Here in Rochester, we have, we elect our school board members who are supposed to represent us. But the SAU office is basically dictated to them, and they're basically voting on spending. Karen Testament, when she was running for governor, we had a wonderful meeting and a discussion about the SAU. Would this potentially take away that, which I would be all for, and based on what I see here in Rochester, because it would put education more in the hands of the people, because then what I would discuss with my school board member would have a little bit more weight, because then she wouldn't be basically, or he being dictated to by, or told by the superintendents what they have to do.
I know we have some legislation that's pending in order to make clear, and my understanding is the ability of towns to withdraw from SAUs. It's important to me that opportunity exists. In the district where I was on the school board, we were in an SAU with another town, and one of the things I used to do is, I don't know where it is across the state, but in our area, there's this tradition that the new school board member is the one that looks at the manifest, all the checks that we written and so forth. And for all the years I was on the school board, I did that myself, because that's actually one of the most telling things about what was going on. And I would find the SAU, for example, funding trips for administrators. I remember one, it was a Sea and Surf, a Sea and Sun resort out in Oregon, where a little bit was funded out of their budget, and it came into our budget, which had nothing to do with it, and use the money. I think towns ought to have the opportunity to when they find an SAU is no longer working for their purposes, withdraw from the SAU, and hopefully this legislation passes and it becomes clear how to do that and make it sort of a process.
Thank you.
And again, best government's local government. Free up local people to do what they want.
Hi, Matt Kittredge, Rochester. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You spoke about a constitutional review committee for new legislation. What about existing legislation? There's a lot of dry rot in that tree.
Well, we don't want to overwhelm the committee. One of the things I did neglect to mention in our house rules is that we've put a rule in place now that requires every vice chairman of a committee, a legislative committee, all bills go to legislative committees, to specifically review every bill to determine that what is being requested is constitutional. And that's the other function of this constitutional review committee. They're a resource to go to. We have to make sure that we're passing laws that are in line with our Constitution. And if someone wanted to have a specific statute in our review, what they need is a member to file a bill saying review the statute.
I'd like to echo my congratulations. It's nice to see change in leadership in New Hampshire State House. I have a question about property tax. And I'm from Massachusetts, but I've recently retired from government and now settled in New Durham. Massachusetts has what they call an overlay account for property taxes. Cities and towns are receiving less money. That's good. They need to live with that. Unfortunately, many of these towns no longer have, if I file a property tax abatement and I'm overvalued, the towns don't have the money to give me on overvaluation. They don't have an overlay account like Massachusetts has. I'd like to know.
I'm not sure if I follow the problem. They don't have funds to rebate.
That's correct. The towns are broke, so they don't have it. They can't rebate the money.
In New Hampshire or Massachusetts?
No, New Hampshire.
Well, they have an obligation to.
You do. What are the alternatives? I mean, I'm for less government, and hate to imply here that the legislature should get involved and put some type of overlay account in so the towns do have. I mean, I think property tax in New Hampshire, I mean, we property owners have an unfair burden here. We're paying most of it because, well, unlike Massachusetts, you don't have income tax, you don't have sales tax, which is good. I'm all for that. One of the reasons I moved to the state. How would you address an overlay account? How would
I'm
you?
not sure I want to impose bureaucracy on the towns. I mean, if there are towns that are not funding their own districts, there's means to make them. You have to go to the legislature to make that happen. I agree with your concern with having a new broad-based tax. It doesn't solve the problem. I'm old enough to remember the experiences in Connecticut and New Jersey where they put income taxes in with the propaganda, essentially, that this is going to reduce property taxes. New Jersey has a specific problem that you're involved with may well require legislation to require them to have some kind of something like that to fund their obligations, or...
Believe me, I'm for less government. I've come from Massachusetts. I've worked in government in Massachusetts my whole life. I'm for less government.
Right.
I think that would be, you know, what you plan on doing to address this problem. I think you're right on point here.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks.
Well, anybody else got a comment? We have another one. Here you go.
Hi, Ken Irie from Windham. Congratulations, Mr. Speaker. It's wonderful that you've been put in your position. I have a question for you. You talked about the Constitutional Review Committee. One of the things that has concerned me and that got me motivated to become part of these types of movements is that our government has not been listening to the people. They are not following the Constitution, and I welcome your Constitutional Committee, and I'm curious if that's the kind of thing that you would consider or find it helpful to make that part of our state constitution, so that if and when the Democrats get back into power, there's restraints on the type of laws that they can pass.
One of the things that I see as Speaker is all the bills that have been filed come to me, so I can send them out to committees. And I've seen a number of great ideas for constitutional amendments. And there's a whole bunch of them that I'd love to say, let's do every one of them. They're great. The experience over time has shown that the more constitutional amendments you put on a ballot, and all these are going to November 2012 ballots once we pass, the less likely you are to get one of them passed. So we sit there and say, well, among these great ideas, what are those that we have to say we really have to push these but limit the others? And then that's going to be an ongoing discussion we have in the legislature, and particularly in the Republican caucus. Which ones do we really want to push? There are those of us who think one we really need to do is one that takes the Claremont handouts off the state. We really do have to return education funding to the towns and cities. This biennium that's just finishing, we spent $575 million last year, and we're going to spend $578 million, I think it is, this year, on state funding of local education. And that comes through the statewide property tax. And it's clear if we continue down this road, we're going to get into the donor and recipient towns. It's almost unavoidable. And indeed, we're probably not in compliance with Claremont now. Last term, we put in a law that says we're just not going to pay $140 million of it. But in order to meet the obligation, unless we pass that law again, because it expires at the end of this June, that $578 million is going to go up to $640 million, and it's going to mean that there will be donor and recipient towns, and we just can't be there. And so one of the things I'm telling folks is, as the state passes this constitutional amendment, what it will mean is that we can do away with the statewide property tax, because there will be enough funds to address specifically to the very poor towns. Now, got a little bit off track in answering your question, but one of the other constitutional amendments that many of us are quite interested